Welcome back. Continuing coverage where we are decoding budget 2020. Through the show, we've had top political leaders, people who are seen to cover the intersection between politics and finance in particular. Being joined now by three more important guests. Milind Deora is senior leader of the Congress as well as someone who's been a minister. Dr. Amit Mitra is West Bengal's finance minister, and I'm also joined by Amitabh Kant. I'm going to come to each of you individually. I don't want a tutu meme, so I'm going to come to you, Dr. Mitra, first, because as Finance Minister of Bengal, one of the challenges, it appears, that Nirmala Sitharaman is throwing is on state governments like yours. She says she's keen to have a simplified GST regime from April 1. That's what was the intention in today's budget, she claimed. Do you see that happening? You've been a critic of the present GST regime. Are we now going to see a simplified GST regime with the Finance Minister pushing ahead with it?
I'm very sorry to say that this is another red herring. It will not happen. The reason being, I have, on your very show, I had said very clearly, please stop this charade. Let's get together, focus on the GST, entire structure, function of the GST. 44,000 crores have been defrauded.
But the
That's
minister
humongous.
is indicating that she's ready
So
to
what is
look
the
at a simplified
simplification?
GST.
I'm very happy she's saying so. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating. When she calls a GST Council meeting with an open mind for 3 days, only single agenda, the defective structure and function of the GST, due to which the states which gave up all its rights, 70% of revenue it gave up to have the GST, today stand where they are being even threatened that they will not be compensated. Do you know, for this month, the government presentation said they may not be able to compensate the states. Hello, what is it that she wants? I am delighted that she is saying this. Proof of the pudding will be come back to the states. And let me tell you, this time the state budget in terms of what they give to the states again has been reduced, aside from the GST, because your tax collection is less, so your absolute amount giving to us is less. And on top of that, I was surprised to find a cut from 42% to 41%. What simply it means is, states are being squeezed from every side. Do you know that the central government has not paid us? And I happen to be finance minister of a state. I have not received 37,000 crores due to me from budget allocations of the past.
Can I ask
you?
So
I'm very happy she has said this, but the challenge is deep.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Can I though ask you, do you believe that this budget will kickstart growth? Do you believe that the real challenge of consumption and growth will be kickstarted? Or do you believe it's a missed opportunity?
Absolutely not. It is not only a missed opportunity, it's a missed bus. Not just that, it has no direction, which almost all economists are agreed upon. And the worst thing is, the bottom of the pyramid allocations have all been cut. Do you know that the 100 days work, Manrega, where people will put the money into the economy, has been cut?
I've just in fact got the Manrega allocation.
It's by a huge amount.
Manrega allocation cut by 9,500 crores, which is a concern. So you're saying those at the bottom of the pyramid should have reason to be concerned. And you don't see this as a kickstarting of growth. Am I correct, Dr. Mitra?
Not only that, they are the ones, Rajdeep ji, I'm making a bigger statement. I'm suggesting that there's lack of trust because of the nature of this budget. Nobody believes that when last year the economic survey said economy will go by 7%, what did you get? 5%. Today you're saying fiscal deficit in this fiscal year will be 3.5%. Everybody knows that this is another red herring. What I'm asking for is, In this state of gloom and doom economy, universally accepted by all economists, wasn't it time to be bold, have a vision, lay out the 5 steps you're going to take in the next 2 or 3 years, it's a vision, and this is my first step in line with lining up the ducks.
Okay.
Never happened. Confused, unstructured. I'm really surprised that a great opportunity of pulling the economy out of this malaise was missed by a budget that could have been a rambunctious, great budget, which I heard one of the industrialists in a channel saying, very big industrialist who's known to be balanced. Sorry, disappointed. Somebody else said it's incremental. You're saying 102 lakh crores you're going to spend on infrastructure. Do you know what the assumption of that is? 13.5% rate of growth in the without any other resources. That will not happen.
Okay.
I'm hearing jumlas. I'm hearing jumlas.
Okay. Okay.
Let's get real.
Okay, you're saying let's get real.
Did you hear the finance minister say? No,
Yes.
no, but did you hear the finance minister say, Honorable Finance Minister, that we are in serious trouble? Our GDP growth is only at 5%. I'm going to pull this out. No. Again, that denial. First admit.
Okay.
Then give us prescriptions. And we will all work together.
Let me leave it there, Dr. Mitra. Those are strong words. Amitabh Kant and Milind Deora still with us. Amitabh Kant, you just heard what Dr. Mitra said. How do you respond to those who say this is a missed opportunity in terms of reviving the growth and consumption cycle? Too much of tinkering, no big picture, no big bold reforms.
So Rajdeep, my view is that this is a forward-looking budget. It's very developmental oriented, and largely on account of the following reasons. One is that the budget actually helps you to make India one of the least taxed economy, both on the corporate tax side and on the personal tax economy. So it'll be simple, it'll be easy, and it'll be low tax over a period of time. I think right now people have been given an option. It's an interim phase, but over a period of time, both on corporate and personal tax, you will have a least tax country. Secondly, I think India's requirement is on infrastructure, and doing away with tax on sovereign wealth funds will lead to a lot of resources coming in to create world-class infrastructure. Thirdly, this dividend tax being done away with is a very, very progressive step forward, and I really welcome it. Fourthly, two major strands in this whole budget. One is about pushing for private-public partnership across sectors. Government by itself cannot make the economy grow. You need private sector investment to flow in. Investments, PPP investments on greenfield projects are tough, and what the government has done well is to raise its target for disinvestment, is pushing for big ticket disinvestment, and therefore
It's not
private
happened.
sector will come in into brownfield projects, and along with that you'll get credit flow coming in. Same thing will happen when you privatize 150 railway trains with railway stations and many other things. So that's a good move forward by the government. And fifthly, I think the government has realized that startups are a good engine of growth. They've done an outstanding work in India, and they've provided a huge level of greater impetus to startups by not taxing the ESOP for the next 5 years. This is a very bold move by increasing the limits of startup from 25 crores to 100 crores and saying that carry forward can be done instead of 7 years. Your losses of carry forward can, instead of 7 years, can be taken up to 10 years. These are all big ticket.
You've used the word big ticket about 4 times now, Amitabh Kant. Milind Deora, this seems to be the sort of divide at the moment. The government saying, look, we've taken these bold steps, and yet the opposition keeps saying this is tinkering, this is incrementalism, it's a hodgepodge budget. How do you respond? Is there a middle ground that you're willing to discover, a bipartisan middle ground on the nature of the budget, given the kind of situation that we find ourselves in with the sharp economic slowdown over 6 successive quarters?
So let me try and not wear my political cap as a member of the opposition. I think you asked a fundamental question to Dr. Mitra, whether this budget will kickstart economic growth. And I think it's important for us to keep in mind that the sort of trinity of economic growth is higher consumer spending, higher capital expenditure, and certainly fiscal responsibility, which essentially means revenue minus expenditure. Now, if you look at consumer spending, which boosts demand, which leads to more demand for products, goods, and services, which in turn obviously helps industry, the only little tweak that I've seen is some deduction of tax for individuals who essentially are doing away with exemptions, who are saying goodbye to exemptions. They stand to benefit a little bit. Whether this will actually put a lot of money in the hands of the middle class, the lower middle class in India, that remains to be seen. If it results in greater disposable incomes, certainly it could result in higher consumer spending and higher demand. The second and, in my opinion, most important aspect of this is capital expenditure. Today, for instance, Amitabh Kant, my friend, spoke about an investment into infrastructure. Now, if you look at a sector like power generation, for instance, in the last several years, there's been zero capital expenditure, private capital expenditure in power generation, barring NTPC, which is a public sector undertaking. For instance, a company that generates power sells its power to states, to state discoms or distribution companies. State discoms across the country today have accumulated debt of around 4 lakh crore rupees. If nobody is investing, if there's no new capex happening in sectors like power, how are you going to essentially create employment? Who is going to borrow from the banks? Who is in turn going to feed into that higher consumer demand? And this has many, many aspects to it. Another big aspect which influences capital expenditure is business sentiment. Today, business sentiment is at an all-time low. Now, the government and the finance minister, I've been hearing this in 3 successive budgets, where 2 successive finance ministers have spoken about essentially reducing harassment for businessmen, for entrepreneurs. Today, in the economic survey yesterday, a big central theme was how important wealth creators are, because they essentially are also job creators. To some extent, there has been some e-assessments which the government has tinkered with. But let's be honest, on the ground today, and I live in Mumbai, across the board, every businessman speaks about harassment from ED, from CBI, from income tax. So the proof is in the pudding. Will the government actually be able to deliver on the ground, walk the talk, reduce
Milind
harassment,
Deora, let me take that to Amitabh Kant.
A conducive environment which encourages and enhances risk appetite? Just 1 minute, Rajdeep, let me finish my point.
Yes.
The third and most important aspect, also equally important aspect of in the trinity of economic growth, is fiscal responsibility. Now, this government and in this budget today, they announced a disinvestment target, a very ambitious target, I would say, of 2.1 lakh crore of their disinvestment target. But I think the government has to spell out what disinvestment really means, because in the last several years, this government still hasn't found a private buyer for a loss-making PSU, B2C PSU called Air India, which has an accumulated debt of 23,000 crores. They are now taking LIC public, which essentially will help them raise a large percentage of that 2.1 lakh crore target of disinvestment. But don't forget that this government's track record in the last 5 years, when they've talked about disinvestment, it's been selling a stake in one PSU to another PSU.
I take
and
your
we
points,
all
Milind.
understand that does not constitute disinvestment.
You made your points and you made them
means
firmly.
When the government says we cannot run businesses efficiently, they're loss-making and we need to sell them to the private sector.
You know, before I take a break, I need you to respond to that, Amitabh Kant. You've been a former bureaucrat. You know, the finance minister says there will be a change in mindset. The tax authorities, remember, in the past are seen to have, as Milind Deora says, treated wealth creators as criminals. Today, the FM says wealth creators will be respected. Can we expect really a change in culture where the taxman does not become part of this police state?
Yeah, so I think the government is really pushing for it in the last couple of very radical reforms, not merely in the budget but outside it. you would see a couple of decisions. They formed a committee which will have to say that this is a case of fraud before the investigating agencies get into actual investigation. CVC has constituted that committee. Similarly, there's been another notification from the Department of Financial Services which says that bankers, every case is not a case of fraud really, and there can be genuine business lapses in MSMEs. And I think thirdly today, from what has been said about decriminalizing. So I think the right ecosystem in terms of taking risks, in terms of lending, in terms of ensuring that there's greater flow of resources into the economy is being set right.
Milind, I 10 seconds is all I will give you. Since you raised your hand, I'll give you 10 seconds. I know that's too little, but respond. You want to respond to the tax point?
No, I'm aware of the committees that have been set up by the government, but the bottom line is, look, this tax terrorism is not only limited to the CBDT or the income tax. Nirmala Sitharaman sometime back told bankers, especially public sector bankers, that we will free you from the 3 Cs, CBI, CVC and CAG. Again, this has nothing to do with the budget. This does not have to be an annual exercise that happens once a year. I believe this has to come from the top. A message has to come from the Prime Minister, from the Finance Minister, to all investigating agencies that agency overreach will not be tolerated.
Okay.
And that will then percolate down to the lowest levels where businessmen will feel free to take risks.
Okay, let's leave it there. As I said, we've got lots of ground to cover. We've got lots of very special guests joining us right through this programming today.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.